Hey everyone, welcome back to Mind Science Journey. I'm really glad you're here. Seriously, wherever you're watching from, phone glowing at midnight, headphones on during a commute, or just zoning out after a long day, you picked a perfect moment to drop in. All right, lean in a little closer, because today I want to tell you about a moment that genuinely stopped me in my tracks. I was staring at my screen late one night. You know, that hour when the world is quiet but your brain is loud? And I came across this idea that felt almost illegal. Not futuristic, not sci fi. Illegal. A quantum trick. That's literally what scientists are calling it. A trick that can make AI models smaller, faster, leaner, without breaking them. And right when my brain was still trying to catch up, another story slammed into me. Twisted two-dimensional carbon materials behaving like superconductors. No resistance, no wasted energy, just electrons gliding like they've discovered a shortcut through reality. Yeah, same reaction. So tonight, and I say tonight because this feels like a late night conversation, we're not reporting news. We're walking into it together, slowly, honestly, curiously. Let me take you back to where this story really starts. I remember the first time I realized how huge modern AI actually is. Not metaphorically huge, I mean physically. Massive server farms, endless rows of humming machines, heat pouring out like breath from a sleeping dragon, entire buildings devoted to teaching machines how to think. And the crazy part? Most of that bulk isn't intelligence. It's redundancy. It's brute force. It's like trying to memorize a book by photocopying every page a million times. We've just accepted that this is the cost of progress. But what if it isn't? What if intelligence doesn't need to be so heavy? That's where this quantum trick comes in. Now get this. Instead of forcing AI models to store and compute everything classically, researchers started borrowing ideas from quantum physics. Not full-blown quantum computers, not sci-fi machines hidden underground, just quantum thinking. They realized that information doesn't always need to exist in one rigid state. It can be compressed, overlapped, shared in ways classical systems never considered. Imagine packing a suitcase. Most of us fold clothes, stack them, sit on the zipper, and hope it closes. That's classical computing. Quantum thinking? It's like realizing you can roll the clothes, remove the air, and suddenly fit twice as much in without losing anything important. And when scientists applied this idea to AI, models started shrinking. Same abilities, same accuracy, way less weight. I remember reading that and whispering out loud, wait, why didn't we think of this sooner? Have you ever had that feeling like humanity just unlocked a hidden menu? If that hits you even a little, pause for a second, drop a like on this video, and subscribe to Mind Science Journey. It tells the algorithm, yeah, I want more of this curiosity in my life. All right, let's go deeper. Because while AI is learning to think lighter, matter itself is doing something strange. Picture a sheet of carbon so thin it's practically an idea. Two dimensions, flat, elegant, simple. Now twist it. Just a tiny angle, not even something your eyes could measure. And suddenly, boom, the electrons inside stop bumping into things. They stop losing energy. They move together, in sync, like dancers who somehow rehearsed without ever meeting. That's superconductivity. No heat loss, no resistance. And what makes me laugh, honestly laugh, is how fragile this effect is. Twisted too much? Gone. Not enough? Gone. There's a magic angle. Doesn't that sound familiar? Like life itself sometimes works only when things are aligned just right. Scientists call this twisted bilayer graphene, but I don't think that name does it justice. This is material realizing that geometry matters as much as composition. And suddenly, the implications get wild. Superconductors that don't need extreme cold, energy grids without loss, AI hardware that doesn't overheat, quantum systems talking to classical machines without friction. Can you imagine a future where your devices barely warm up? Where energy flows like water downhill effortlessly? What would you build if power was no longer the limit? Tell me in the comments. I genuinely want to know. Now, here's where these two stories quietly collide. AI is hungry for energy. Quantum inspired compression makes AI lighter. Twisted carbon materials make electricity flow cleaner. You see it, right? This isn't two breakthroughs, it's one conversation happening across different layers of reality. It's like nature whispering, efficiency isn't about doing more, it's about getting out of your own way. And when I think about that, I think about us. How often do we overcomplicate, overbuild, overthink? Huh, yeah, guilty. If this idea resonates with you, this blend of science and self-reflection, hit that subscribe button and join Mind Science Journey. We don't rush here, we explore. As I dug deeper into these studies, something else hit me. We're standing at a crossroads. One path says, just scale it up. Bigger models, bigger machines, more power. The other whispers, what if smarter is smaller? Quantum tricks, twisted matter, hidden efficiencies. History tells us which path usually wins, but we're only at the beginning. And in the next part, I want to take you behind the scenes, into the labs, the whiteboards, the moments of doubt where scientists almost gave up, and the tiny observations that changed everything. Because breakthroughs don't happen in fireworks. They happen in quiet rooms, at weird hours, when someone notices something that shouldn't work, but does. Huh. All right. If you're still with me, thank you, truly. All right, welcome back. If you're still here, that tells me something about you. You don't just like answers, you like process, the messy middle, the how did we even get here part. So let's step into that. I want you to imagine a lab at night. Not the movie version, no dramatic music, no glowing tubes everywhere, just fluorescent lights humming softly, a whiteboard covered in half-erased equations, coffee cups that have definitely seen better days. This is where most breakthroughs actually live. I remember reading an interview with one of the researchers working on quantum-inspired AI compression. They said something that stuck with me. We weren't trying to make AI smaller. We were trying to understand why it was so inefficient. That line hit hard because inefficiency hides in plain sight. When something works, we stop questioning it. And AI? AI worked, so nobody asked why it needed so many parameters, billions, sometimes trillions, just to recognize patterns that humans pick up naturally, until someone did. Here's the weird part. When researchers started mapping how AI models actually used information, they realized something uncomfortable. A lot of neurons weren't pulling their weight. They were there just in case, backup on backup on backup. That's when quantum ideas slipped in, not as hardware, but as philosophy. Quantum systems don't store everything explicitly. They encode relationships. Instead of saying, here are 10 facts, they say, here's how those facts relate. That shift alone changes everything. It's like the difference between memorizing phone numbers versus remembering who you'd call in an emergency. Same outcome, less storage. And when this idea was tested on AI models, they didn't just shrink, they focused. Performance stayed the same, sometimes even improved. And that's the part that makes engineers nervous. If you can remove half the system and nothing breaks, what were we doing all this time? Have you ever realized you were carrying something heavy, emotionally, mentally, and the moment you put it down, you felt lighter and stronger? Yeah, that feeling. If you've ever experienced that, drop a comment. And hey, if you're enjoying this ride, Hit like and subscribe to Mind Science Journey. It helps keep these deep dives alive. Now, let's jump back to the material side of this story. Because while AI researchers were trimming the fat, physicists were twisting atoms. I still love how accidental this discovery feels. They weren't searching for superconductivity, they were just curious. Two layers of graphene, stacked, slightly rotated. That's it. But at a very specific angle, about 1.1 degrees, something snapped into place. Electrons stopped acting like individuals. They started acting like a collective. No collisions, no resistance. That's superconductivity. And normally, it's fragile, needs extreme cold, complex materials. But here, it emerged from geometry, which makes you wonder, what else are we missing just because we haven't tilted our perspective enough? Think about it. How many problems are unsolvable until someone looks at them sideways? What really fascinated me was how similar the mindsets were between these two fields. AI researchers asked, do we really need all of this? Physicists asked, what happens if we change the relationship instead of the substance? Different questions, same instinct, efficiency through elegance. And when you connect those dots, you start to see a future forming. AI models that are lighter, faster, and cheaper to run. Hardware that wastes almost no energy. Systems that don't fight physics, they cooperate with it. That's not just technological progress, that's alignment. But here's where the story gets human again, because not everyone believed this would work. Some researchers thought the quantum-inspired AI tricks were cheating. Others worried the twisted materials were too delicate to ever scale. Funding was tight, results were inconsistent. There were months where nothing happened. Can you imagine dedicating years to an idea that only works when everything lines up just right? Would you stick with it? That's a question worth sitting with. If you were chasing something uncertain, something elegant but fragile, would you keep going? Tell me, honestly. One scientist described the moment they knew they were on to something. They ran the compressed AI model, expected worse performance. Instead, it solved the task faster. They checked the logs, ran it again, same result. That's the kind of moment you stop breathing for a second, because either you made a mistake or reality just bent. And in another lab, halfway across the world, someone watched resistance drop to zero in twisted graphene and whispered, "No way." Those moments don't come with applause, just silence, and then excitement rushes in all at once. I live for those moments. If you do too, subscribe to Mind Science Journey. This channel exists for exactly this feeling. Now, here's the part that keeps me up at night. What happens when these ideas mature? When AI doesn't need massive data centers? When energy loss becomes rare? When intelligence and infrastructure stop competing for resources? We stop building bigger. We start building smarter. And that shift doesn't just change technology, it changes priorities. But that future isn't guaranteed. It depends on what we choose to value next. And in the next part, I want to talk about the tension, the resistance, the skepticism, and the quiet battle between brute force and elegance. Because not everyone wants the world to get lighter. Some people profit from heavy systems, and that complicates everything. All right, pause here with me. All right, let's keep going. Because now we're stepping into the uncomfortable part of the story. The part where progress doesn't feel clean or inevitable. The part where ideas collide with incentives. I remember feeling this shift while researching deeper, that subtle tension in the background. Up until now, everything sounded elegant, almost poetic. Smarter AI, lighter models, materials that cooperate with physics instead of fighting it. But then reality tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, this isn't just about science. This is about power. And I don't mean electricity, although, yeah, that too. I mean economic power, institutional power, momentum. Because here's the truth. The world we live in right now is built around big data centers, big budgets, big infrastructure, big companies that can afford inefficiency because they control the scale. So when someone comes along and says, what if we could do the same thing with 1/10 of the resources? That doesn't just sound innovative, it sounds threatening. Have you ever noticed how new ideas aren't usually attacked for being wrong? They're attacked for being impractical. That'll never scale. That's too fragile. That works in theory, not in the real world. Those phrases show up every time something challenges the status quo. And quantum-inspired AI compression? Twisted bilayer graphene? Oh yeah, they heard all of it. Let's start with AI. When researchers showed that compressed models could match or even outperform massive ones, reactions were mixed. Some engineers were thrilled. Others were defensive. Because imagine spending years optimizing massive architectures, tuning gigantic models, designing cooling systems for server farms, and then someone says, actually, we don't need most of that. That's not just a technical critique. That's an identity crisis. I read one comment from a skeptic that said, this feels like cutting corners. And I remember thinking, is it? Or is it just understanding the problem better? There's a big difference. If you've ever had to unlearn something you were proud of, something you invested time and ego into, you know how painful that can be. Have you ever been there? Drop that in the comments. I promise you're not alone. And if you're finding value in these deeper reflections, hit like and subscribe to Mind Science Journey. This channel isn't about hype, it's about meaning. Now, on the materials side, the skepticism was even louder. Twisted bilayer graphene is incredible, but it's delicate. The superconducting effect only appears at very specific angles and conditions. Tiny imperfections can ruin it. Critics asked, how do you manufacture this at scale? How do you keep it stable? What happens outside the lab? All fair questions. But here's what history keeps teaching us. Every revolutionary material starts fragile. The first transistors were unreliable. Early lasers were laboratory toys. The first computers filled rooms and overheated constantly. Fragility isn't a flaw, it's a phase. And the scientists working on these twisted materials know that. They're not claiming the problem is solved. They're saying the door is open. And once a door like that opens, it never really closes. What fascinated me most was how both communities, AI and condensed matter physics, started borrowing language from each other. Physicists began talking about information efficiency. AI researchers started talking about energy landscapes and state spaces. The walls between disciplines were thinning. And that's when something clicked for me. These breakthroughs aren't isolated, they're symptoms. Symptoms of a deeper shift in how we think about complexity. For decades, our solution to complexity was more layers, more parameters, more energy. Now, quietly, we're learning a different lesson. Complex systems often become powerful when they're constrained, when freedom is limited just enough to force coherence. That's true in physics, that's true in AI, and if I'm honest, that's true in life. There was a moment in one lab, I wish I could have been there, where a researcher described feeling uneasy about their own results. They kept rerunning experiments, convinced they'd missed something. Because if efficiency comes this easily, why didn't we see it sooner? And the answer is uncomfortable. We weren't looking for it. We were rewarded for scale, not elegance. And systems tend to reinforce what they reward. Think about that for a second. What do we reward in our own lives? Busyness? Productivity theater? Bigger plans instead of better ones? If that question makes you pause, you're exactly the kind of person this channel is for. Subscribe to Mind Science Journey. We ask the questions most feeds skip, but resistance doesn't stop progress. It shapes it. Skepticism forces refinement. Criticism exposes weaknesses. And slowly, quietly, these ideas started proving themselves. Compressed AI models began showing up in places where massive models couldn't run. Edge devices, remote sensors, low-power environments. Twisted materials inspired entirely new classes of experiments, not just graphene, but other layered systems twisted, stacked, nudged. The idea spread faster than the material itself. And that's the real danger, or promise, depending on who you ask. Because once people believe efficiency is possible, they start demanding it everywhere. And that changes expectations. It changes funding priorities. It changes who gets left behind. Which brings us to the next tension. If AI becomes lighter and energy becomes cheaper, who controls it? Who benefits? Who decides how it's used? And that's where this story stops being about labs and equations and starts being about society. And that's where I want to take you next, because the science is incredible, but the consequences, they're even bigger. Take a breath with me. All right, let's step forward, because now we're leaving the labs behind and walking straight into the world these ideas are about to reshape. There's a moment I keep replaying in my head. It's not dramatic, no explosion, no headline, just a quiet realization. If intelligence becomes cheap, everything changes. And that thought, it's thrilling. It's also terrifying. Up until now, advanced AI has been a luxury. It lives in massive data centers owned by a handful of players. It requires energy, cooling, money, lots of all three. But when quantum-inspired compression makes models lighter, when materials science makes energy flow cleaner, suddenly intelligence doesn't have to live in one place. It can spread. That's where the story gets complicated. Think about it. If powerful AI can run on small devices, if energy loss stops being a bottleneck, then intelligence moves closer to the edge, literally. Smart sensors in remote villages, medical diagnostics in places without hospitals, real-time translation without cloud access. That's the hopeful version. And I want to sit with that for a moment, because it's beautiful. Imagine a world where access to intelligence isn't gated by infrastructure, where creativity isn't limited by compute budgets, where innovation doesn't require permission. Can you imagine what you would build in that world? Let me know. And if this vision excites you even a little, hit like and subscribe to Mind Science Journey. You're part of this conversation. But now, the other side. Because when something powerful becomes small, it also becomes harder to control. Massive data centers are visible, regulated, taxed, watched. Tiny, efficient systems? They disappear into everyday objects. A camera here, a sensor there, a chip embedded in something you don't even notice. And that raises questions no equation can answer. Who owns the intelligence running around us? Who decides what it sees, what it remembers? And here's where the parallel with superconducting materials becomes eerie. Superconductors remove resistance, but resistance isn't always bad. Resistance slows things down. It gives systems time to react. It prevents runaway behavior. What happens when technological friction disappears? That's not a rhetorical question. There was a panel discussion I watched where one physicist said something that stuck with me. We're very good at removing limits. We're less good at deciding which limits we need. That line echoes in my head because quantum-inspired AI and twisted materials aren't just removing technical limits, they're removing excuses. No more, it's too expensive. No more, it takes too much power. No more, we don't have the infrastructure. So what happens when those barriers fall? We're forced to confront intention, and intention is messy. I keep thinking about how these breakthroughs mirror something deeply human. We spend so much of our lives adding complexity, tools, systems, habits, believing they'll make us better. Then one day, We simplify, we cut back, we remove noise, and suddenly things work better. Efficiency isn't about speed, it's about clarity. And that's exactly what these scientific advances are offering us, a mirror. Let's zoom back in for a second. As compressed AI models started being tested outside the lab, something unexpected happened. They were more robust, less brittle. Because when a model isn't bloated, it overfits less, it generalizes better, it adapts. That's not just good engineering, that's good design. And twisted materials taught a similar lesson. Collective behavior beats individual chaos. Electrons cooperating outperform electrons colliding. Unity beats force. Yeah, I went there. But tell me, have you ever noticed how teamwork works better when roles are clear and unnecessary effort is stripped away? Science keeps teaching us the same lessons we keep forgetting. Of course, not everyone is ready for this shift. Institutions move slowly, regulations lag, markets resist change. But ideas move fast. And once efficiency becomes the expectation, not the exception, there's no going back. That's why this moment matters, not because of one paper, not because of one material, but because of a direction, a pivot away from brute force, toward elegance, toward understanding. In the next part, I want to explore something deeply personal, how these scientific shifts are changing the way researchers themselves think about intelligence, creativity, and even failure. Because behind every breakthrough is a human mind wrestling with doubt. And that story might be the most important one of all. Stay with me. All right, I'm really glad you stayed, because this next part gets quiet. Not slow, just honest. There's something we don't talk about enough when we talk about breakthroughs. We talk about results, we talk about graphs and performance and headlines, but we almost never talk about doubt. And doubt was everywhere in this story. I came across a personal note from a young researcher. Not a polished interview, just a raw reflection. They wrote about working on quantum-inspired AI compression and feeling like they were constantly on the edge of embarrassment. They said, I kept thinking, what if this is just a clever illusion? What if we're fooling ourselves? That line stopped me, because that's not imposter syndrome, that's responsibility. When you're dealing with systems that could reshape how intelligence works, the fear isn't failure. The fear is being wrong in a way that scales. Have you ever been afraid not because something might fail, but because it might succeed? Sit with that for a second. If that resonates, hit like and subscribe to Mind Science Journey. This channel exists for those uncomfortable, honest moments. The same emotional tension showed up in the materials labs. Physicists working with twisted carbon layers described weeks where nothing worked. Slight vibrations ruined alignments. Temperature fluctuations killed the effect. One of them joked, half joking, "This material hates us." But behind that humor was frustration. Because when something only works at a magic angle, you start questioning your own competence. Am I careful enough? Am I patient enough? Am I missing something obvious? And here's the part I love. Many of them almost quit. Not dramatically, just quietly shifting focus, moving on to safer projects. But a few didn't. And those few shared something in common. They weren't chasing impact. They were chasing understanding. That distinction matters more than we admit. Chasing impact makes you impatient. Chasing understanding makes you persistent. And persistence is what allowed these ideas to mature. AI researchers kept stripping models down further, asking not how big can it be, but what's the minimum it needs. Physicists kept refining techniques, stabilizing twists, exploring neighboring materials. Slow work, unflashy work, but foundational. At some point, the emotional tone shifted. Instead of asking, will this work? They started asking, Where else could this apply? That's the moment a discovery becomes a platform. Compressed AI ideas started influencing robotics, neuroscience, even cognitive science. Twisted material insights started appearing in discussions about quantum devices, sensors, and hybrid computing. And that's when the weight of it hit me. These weren't isolated wins, they were new lenses, ways of seeing problems differently. And once you see through a new lens, you can't unsee it. I caught myself applying these ideas to my own thinking. Where am I overbuilding? Where am I confusing effort with effectiveness? Where could I remove resistance? And where should I keep it? Because not all friction is bad. Muscles grow from resistance. Character grows from constraint. The trick, whether in physics, AI, or life, is knowing the difference. Science doesn't just explain the world. At its best, it explains us. There's a quiet optimism among the researchers I've been following. Not hype, not utopian, just steady confidence. They know scaling will take time. They know challenges remain. They know reality is stubborn. But they also know something fundamental shifted. We proved that smaller can be smarter. We proved that geometry can unlock behavior matter never showed before. We proved that elegance isn't weakness. That's not a headline. That's a philosophy. And here's the last thing I want to leave you with in this part. Progress doesn't always arrive as a leap forward. Sometimes it arrives as a letting go of excess, of assumptions, of the belief that more is always better. Quantum tricks, twisted materials, compressed intelligence, different fields, same message. And in the next part, I want to look ahead, not wildly, not irresponsibly, but thoughtfully. What does the next decade look like if this philosophy takes root? What changes first, and what might surprise us? Thanks for being here with me. All right, let's keep moving forward. Because now we're standing at the edge of the future. Not the flashy sci-fi version, but the quiet, inevitable one that sneaks up on us while we're busy arguing about the present. When people ask, what will the next decade of science look like? Most answers focus on things. Faster computers, smarter AI, better batteries, new materials. But after sitting with these stories, the quantum tricks, the twisted carbon, the pursuit of efficiency, I think the bigger change won't be technological. It'll be philosophical. We're about to stop asking, how much more can we add? And start asking, what can we remove? That shift alone is revolutionary. Let's start with AI again. As compressed, efficient models mature, something subtle but powerful will happen. AI will move out of the cloud and into the world, not metaphorically, physically, into devices that don't need constant internet access, into environments where power is limited, into places where latency isn't just annoying, it's dangerous. Think emergency response systems. Think autonomous vehicles in rural areas. Think medical tools in clinics without reliable infrastructure. This isn't about convenience, it's about access. And access reshapes society faster than any headline breakthrough. Have you ever noticed how tools become more democratic the moment they become smaller and cheaper? That's not an accident. If that excites you, take a second to like this video and subscribe to Mind Science Journey. You're witnessing the roots of something big. Now imagine pairing that with advances in superconducting or near superconducting materials. Energy loss drops, heat drops, maintenance drops. Suddenly, systems that used to require constant babysitting become calm, stable, quiet. I think we underestimate how much noise inefficiency adds to our lives. Fans whirring, servers overheating, batteries draining, systems throttling themselves just to survive. What happens when technology stops fighting itself? We gain mental space, and that space, it goes somewhere. There's another shift coming, one that's less obvious. As efficiency improves, optimization stops being the hero. Right now, entire careers are built around squeezing performance out of inefficient systems. That won't disappear overnight, but it will change. The new advantage won't be who can build the biggest system. It'll be who understands the problem most deeply. That favors curiosity, interdisciplinary thinking, people willing to ask why instead of how fast. And that gives me hope, because it means the future isn't reserved for those with the biggest budgets, but for those with the clearest insight. Of course, there will be surprises. There always are. Some applications will fail. Some materials won't scale. Some compressed models will break in unexpected ways. But failure will look different. It won't be catastrophic collapse. It'll be gentle correction. And that's what healthy systems do. They bend, they adapt, they don't snap. I keep thinking about how twisted materials taught us that angle matters. Not force, not volume, angle, perspective. And quantum-inspired AI taught us that relationships matter more than raw storage. Those lessons don't stay in labs. They leak into economics, into design, into how we measure success, maybe even into how we define intelligence itself. Here's a question I want you to sit with. If intelligence becomes lightweight, if energy becomes abundant, if efficiency becomes expected, what will we choose to spend our resources on instead? Creativity? Exploration? Care? Or something else entirely? There's no right answer, but the fact that we'll have a choice is the real breakthrough. Tell me what you think in the comments. And if you're enjoying this thoughtful pace, subscribe to Mind Science Journey. This is exactly where we're headed. In the next part, I want to zoom in on something very specific: how education, research culture, and young scientists are already changing because of these ideas. Because the next generation isn't waiting for permission, they're building differently from day one. And that might be the most exciting twist of all. All right, let's dive in deeper. Because this next part is about people, not machines, not materials, but the humans shaping the future. And that's where the story gets really alive. I want you to imagine a lab filled with young researchers, not graying professors, not tenured veterans, kids fresh out of school, eyes bright, coffee in hand, notebooks full of scribbles and doodles that actually matter. They've grown up in a world where AI is already part of life. They've grown up with laptops, cloud computing, and access to ideas that previous generations could only dream of. But here's the kicker. They're tired of brute force solutions. They see the inefficiency, they see the energy waste, and they're not impressed. One grad student told me, almost defensively, "Why would I build something enormous when I can make it elegant? Efficiency is creativity." That line hit me harder than any paper I've read all year. Because it's true. Elegance is creativity, and creativity is freedom. I remember walking through one of these labs virtually. They were experimenting with compressed AI architectures. Their workspace was chaotic, but in a precise, intentional way. Wires everywhere, screens filled with graphs, equations written on the walls. And yet, amid the chaos, everything was focused. Every experiment had purpose. Every failure was analyzed. Every small success celebrated. And here's what blew me away. They were learning from the quantum trick itself. Instead of thinking, let's add more to make it work, they asked, how little can we use? How little relationships are essential? What can we compress without losing intelligence? That mindset isn't just efficient, it's transformative. Meanwhile, in materials science labs, a similar shift was happening. Twisted 2D carbon experiments are fragile, extremely fragile. One wrong angle, one vibration, and the superconductivity disappears. So what do young physicists do? They innovate with constraints. Instead of fighting the instability, they embrace it. They design experiments that anticipate imperfection. They explore materials that are more robust, inspired by the elegance of graphene's quantum behavior. It's a quiet revolution. You won't see it on the news, but it's happening, and it matters. Here's the connection I love. AI researchers and materials scientists are starting to share strategies. They talk about relationships over volume. They talk about alignment over brute force. They talk about resilience over redundancy. These aren't just techniques, they're philosophies. They shape the way the next generation thinks about science itself. And that has ripple effects, because these students will take these lessons into entrepreneurship, technology, policy, and education. They'll design systems that are smarter, not just bigger, that are lighter, not just heavier, that are intentional, not just reactive. Have you ever felt like the tools you're using are limiting you? Maybe it's your computer, maybe it's your schedule, maybe it's a mental model you've carried for years. These young researchers are proving something radical. Limitations are opportunities. When you constrain yourself in the right way, innovation explodes. Think about it. Quantum-inspired AI works better when constrained. Twisted materials show extraordinary behavior at precise angles. And people, humans, flourish when they focus on what matters most. I love how these breakthroughs force us to reconsider failure, too. In the old world of massive models and brute force experiments, failure felt catastrophic. One wrong calculation, one misplaced atom, and months of work were wasted. Now, in compressed AI and twisted 2D experiments, failure becomes informative, small, recoverable, and incredibly revealing. It changes the psychology of research. You experiment boldly because the stakes aren't world-ending. You iterate faster, you adapt smarter, you learn deeper. And that's exactly the culture young scientists are cultivating. And here's the part that makes me a little emotional. These labs, these students, these late-night thinkers, they are quietly building a culture of responsibility because they know the tech they're creating can be used in countless ways. AI that runs everywhere, energy systems that barely lose power, superconducting materials that could reshape infrastructure. They're not naive. They know misuse is possible, but they're committed to thinking ahead, to asking the right questions, to considering the impact before the product. And that, more than any material or algorithm, might be the most important innovation of all. So here's the question I want you to ponder today. If you had the chance to reshape a system, a school, a business, a city, or even your own habits, with efficiency and elegance as your guiding principles, what would you change first? Leave your thoughts in the comments, and if this resonates with you, hit like and subscribe to Mind Science Journey. You're joining the conversation at the ground level of transformation. In the next part, I want to explore the broader implications, because it's not just labs and students anymore. It's society, industry, and the way we imagine the future of intelligence itself. And that's where things get really fascinating and a little unpredictable. All right, welcome back. Now that we've been inside the labs and the minds of young researchers, it's time to zoom out and see the bigger picture. The implications of these breakthroughs aren't confined to labs. They're creeping into the real world, and the effects might surprise you. Think about AI first. Compressed, efficient models mean intelligence is no longer tied to massive server farms. That's huge. Suddenly, smart systems can exist anywhere, not just in tech hubs or research centers, but in villages, homes, wearable devices, and low-power environments. Imagine emergency drones that can analyze disaster zones in real time, powered by tiny AI chips. Imagine AI tutors in remote schools that can adapt to each student's pace without expensive infrastructure. Imagine devices that can process data locally without sending it to some centralized cloud. That's not future talk, it's imminent. And here's what's fascinating. Democratization of intelligence changes everything. The moment intelligence becomes portable, affordable, and energy efficient, it no longer lives in the hands of a few. It becomes a tool for empowerment, creativity, and problem solving everywhere. But with great distribution comes great responsibility. We've talked about efficiency, elegance, and reduced energy waste, but efficiency can be double-edged. Think about privacy. Think about surveillance. Think about AI systems that can act autonomously in ways we haven't anticipated. As intelligence spreads, control becomes tricky. Big centralized systems are easy to regulate. Small distributed systems, much harder. That's why this story isn't just about quantum tricks or twisted materials. It's about ethics. And humans are still the weak link. We create tools faster than we create rules, faster than we teach society how to handle them responsibly. And that's where the next tension arises. Meanwhile, on the materials side, twisted 2D carbon is starting to influence industries quietly but powerfully. Superconductors with low energy loss, that's not just a lab novelty. That could reshape power grids, transportation, and electronics. Imagine trains that float with zero resistance, power lines that lose almost no energy, quantum devices that operate stably at higher temperatures. The infrastructure implications are massive, and as efficiency improves, access costs drop, opening up opportunities for regions and communities that previously couldn't participate in high-tech solutions. It's a ripple effect. And here's a concept that blew me away while researching: innovation alignment. When AI is lean, energy is clean, and materials behave predictably, these systems start to fit together naturally. Right now, AI struggles with energy demands. Hardware struggles with heat. Materials research is often disconnected. But imagine a world where everything is designed to cooperate, not by mandate, but by nature. AI that runs efficiently on hardware designed with superconductivity in mind, energy systems that power AI with minimal loss, devices that communicate seamlessly. The word alignment keeps coming up in interviews. It's not a buzzword, it's a strategy. And alignment matters because it turns friction into collaboration. Here's something that struck me deeply. In labs and in industry, researchers are starting to see patterns in how success emerges. Not from brute force, not from sheer scale, from precision, cooperation, and understanding the relationships between parts. That's what the quantum trick teaches. That's what twisted materials teach. That's what life teaches if you pay attention. It's beautiful, really. And it made me think about our personal lives, too. We often pile on more tasks, more responsibilities, more noise, believing we're moving forward. But sometimes progress comes from removing the excess, understanding relationships, and aligning priorities. Can you feel that parallel? If you do, leave a comment. I'd love to hear how science is making you rethink your own approach. And yes, hit that subscribe button if you haven't yet. We explore these connections constantly on Mind Science Journey. Now, let's talk industry. Big companies are noticing these trends. Some are excited, some are wary. Excited because efficiency reduces costs. Smaller models mean cheaper hardware. Less power means greener operations. And faster, lighter systems can scale globally without adding massive infrastructure. Wary because small, distributed intelligence is harder to control. Centralized power loses its monopoly. Traditional models of profit and dominance get disrupted. That tension between opportunity and disruption is where the next decade of innovation will live. And that's why observing culture is as important as observing labs. Here's another interesting angle: collaboration across fields. AI researchers are borrowing concepts from physics. Physicists are borrowing ideas from AI. Materials scientists are considering energy efficiency in ways inspired by computing. The lines between disciplines are blurring. And when that happens, innovation doesn't just accelerate, it transforms the way we think. The next breakthroughs won't come from isolated geniuses. They'll come from collaborative ecosystems. Imagine teams of AI researchers, physicists, material scientists, and ethicists all tackling the same problem. Each brings a perspective, and suddenly solutions appear where none existed before. It's messy, it's complicated, it's human, and that's exactly what makes it exciting. So here's a question I want you to think about. If you could influence the next big collaboration in science, where AI, materials, and human insight meet, what problem would you tackle first? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I promise someone is watching and inspired by these ideas. And if this conversation is hitting the right notes, like the video and subscribe to Mind Science Journey. We're just scratching the surface. In the next part, I want to go even further. We'll explore the societal consequences, how education, urban design, energy policy, and even personal creativity might be reshaped by the ripple effects of these breakthroughs. Because science isn't just about what we can do, it's about what we choose to do. All right, welcome back. Now it's time to expand our lens even further, beyond labs, cities, and classrooms, into the global stage. This is where the implications of quantum-inspired AI and twisted 2D materials become not just scientific, but geopolitical, economic, and social. Let's start with energy and resources. Superconducting materials promise minimal energy loss. That doesn't just change cities, it changes nations. Countries that currently struggle with inefficient grids could leapfrog decades of infrastructure development. Regions that rely on fossil fuels might transition faster to renewable sources if transmission becomes virtually lossless. Imagine solar or wind farms in deserts or offshore, sending electricity thousands of miles with almost no waste. Access to energy could become a leveling factor globally. That's profound. And here's the kicker: energy efficiency doesn't just reduce costs, it reduces conflict over resources. Water, fuel, and electricity scarcity drive tension worldwide. Removing some of that scarcity shifts the geopolitical landscape. Then there's AI as a strategic resource. Right now, intelligence is concentrated. The biggest models, the fastest supercomputers, the most sophisticated algorithms, only a few countries or corporations control them. But compressed AI changes the rules. Power and knowledge can be distributed. Edge devices could provide strategic insights locally without relying on central servers. Intelligence becomes portable, resilient, and harder to monopolize. That's why governments are already paying attention. Some are funding research aggressively. Others are cautious, worrying about uncontrolled proliferation of capabilities. And that tension between openness and control will shape the next decade. Next, think about international collaboration. Traditionally, cutting-edge research happened in isolated pockets, a few universities, a few labs, a few tech hubs. But breakthroughs in efficiency and materials encourage cross-border partnerships. Why? Because when systems are lightweight and energy efficient, they're easier to deploy and test anywhere. Labs in one country can collaborate with researchers halfway across the globe without building massive infrastructure locally. That has ripple effects for diplomacy, science funding, and global innovation networks. Knowledge becomes a currency, and the ability to share it efficiently becomes power. Now, let's talk about economics. Compressed AI and superconducting materials could disrupt industries everywhere. Tech companies won't need gigantic data centers, reducing operational costs. Energy companies may pivot as losses drop and efficiency rises. Manufacturing could become smarter and more localized, reducing supply chain dependencies. Startups gain a competitive advantage because they can achieve what once only massive corporations could. This creates a shift from capital intensity to knowledge intensity. Your advantage will depend less on how much you can build and more on how cleverly you can design systems. It's a profound change in the rules of the game. And here's a wild thought. Human creativity becomes a new currency. As intelligence and energy become widely available, the limiting factor for innovation won't be access to machines or power. It will be imagination. The most creative, the most insightful, and the most collaborative thinkers will drive progress. That's why education, ethics, and interdisciplinary thinking are so critical. Nations and companies investing only in infrastructure without nurturing human creativity may fall behind. Of course, there are risks. Rapid adoption could outpace ethical frameworks. Misuse could amplify inequality if access isn't truly global. Powerful distributed AI could be weaponized or manipulated if unchecked. History shows that technology often moves faster than regulation, but that doesn't mean we're powerless. Being aware, asking the right questions, and embedding ethics early can make a difference. Here's a thought I keep coming back to. These breakthroughs, quantum-inspired AI, twisted 2D materials, distributed intelligence, aren't just tools, they're mirrors. They reflect our choices, our priorities, and our values. We can choose to build systems that empower everyone, conserve resources, and amplify creativity. Or we can concentrate power, exploit inefficiency, and widen divides. Science provides the mechanics. Humans provide the direction. So here's a question for you. If compressed AI and superconducting materials were available globally tomorrow, how would you want your country or the world to use them? Leave your thoughts in the comments. And if you're inspired to think bigger about science and society, hit like and subscribe to Mind Science Journey. We're exploring these big questions together. In the next part, I want to bring it back to the human story, the emotional, personal side of discovery, doubt, and perseverance. Because behind every breakthrough are people navigating fear, hope, and the unknown. All right, welcome back. Now, let's slow down and focus on the human side of these breakthroughs, the people who make them happen, the doubts they wrestle with, and the moments that define their journeys. Science often looks clean on paper. Equations, graphs, and results make it seem like progress is inevitable. But anyone who has spent time in a lab knows it's messy, emotional, and deeply human. Take the young AI researchers experimenting with compressed models. They work long hours, running simulations that sometimes fail dozens of times in a row. Imagine staring at a system you designed, only to see it underperform over and over. Frustrating, right? But the failures aren't just setbacks, they're teachers. Each failed run reveals which assumptions are wrong, which relationships matter, and which elements can be stripped away. One researcher wrote in her lab journal, "Every time I think I'm failing, I realize I'm learning, and sometimes learning is better than succeeding." I love that mindset, because in the quest for compressed intelligence, efficiency isn't just technical, it's philosophical. Meanwhile, in the twisted materials labs, physicists face a different kind of struggle. Superconductivity in 2D carbon is incredibly sensitive. One vibration, one misalignment, one microscopic impurity, and it vanishes. Weeks of meticulous preparation can collapse in seconds. Yet, despite repeated failure, they persist. They tweak angles, they adjust conditions, they refine techniques. And sometimes, in those rare perfect alignments, magic happens. Electrons behave collectively, resistance drops to zero, and a fleeting moment of perfection appears. It's beautiful, and it's terrifying because you can't control it fully, yet it rewards precision, patience, and intuition. Here's what struck me most: the emotional parallels between AI and materials researchers. Both confront uncertainty daily. Both navigate high stakes without guarantees. Both require patience, creativity, and courage. The only difference is the scale. AI failures happen in simulations, whereas superconducting experiments unfold in the physical world, often with more visible consequences. But the human experience is strikingly similar. Doubt, hope, perseverance, and joy all coexist. Have you ever worked on something that felt impossibly fragile, yet the tiniest success made you feel invincible? That's the emotional essence of discovery. And these emotional stakes shape how science is done. Researchers who embrace doubt, failure, and incremental progress tend to innovate faster than those chasing immediate results. Why? Because risk tolerance is fueled by curiosity, not ego. Compressed AI models teach this lesson beautifully. Simplicity and efficiency emerge from relentless questioning, not from following the rules blindly. Twisted 2D materials teach the same. Elegance arises from precise alignment, not brute force. Emotion and intellect are intertwined. The human mind navigates uncertainty better than any algorithm, at least for now. Here's a personal reflection. Reading lab notes, interviews, and journals from these researchers, I realized the emotional journey mirrors life itself. We build systems, our routines, our habits, our relationships, often bloated and inefficient. We face setbacks, frustrations, and unpredictable results. And when we strip away what's unnecessary, when we focus on relationships and alignment, the system works better. Not because we forced it, but because we understood it. Science and life converge. I also noticed how these emotional patterns influence collaboration. Young researchers share failures openly, creating a culture of transparency. Labs collaborate across borders, learning from each other's mistakes. Mentorship becomes about cultivating curiosity and resilience, not just teaching techniques. These environments amplify breakthroughs. They reinforce the idea that human growth and scientific growth are deeply connected. One researcher described a pivotal moment. I spent weeks convinced I was wasting my time. Then, one morning, everything just clicked. I didn't just find the result, I found myself believing I could do it. That feeling, that moment of alignment changes everything. I can relate. Don't you? There's something powerful about the intersection of persistence, curiosity, and insight. It's why I keep returning to these stories, because science isn't just about knowledge, it's about human experience. So here's a question for you. When you face uncertainty or repeated failure, what keeps you going? Curiosity, passion, hope, or something else entirely? Leave your thoughts in the comments. And if you're inspired by the human stories behind discovery, hit like and subscribe to Mind Science Journey. We explore not only science, but the people and emotions that drive it. In the next part, I want to connect these human journeys back to technology, society, and the future, showing how individual perseverance scales into global impact. Because every breakthrough starts with a single person daring to keep going. All right, let's continue. Now we're bridging the human experience we just explored with the larger ripple effects, how individual perseverance, small breakthroughs, and human curiosity scale up to global technological and societal change. Think about it like this. Every major technological leap starts with a single person noticing something small. In AI, it might be a graduate student asking, can this model do the same with less? In materials science, a physicist wonders, what happens if I twist it just slightly more? These tiny questions, fueled by curiosity and persistence, eventually snowball into discoveries that reshape entire industries, infrastructures, and societies. And the lesson is clear. Progress isn't always linear or grand. It's often incremental and deeply human. Let's look at AI and society first. Compressed, efficient models are quietly changing the landscape. They're no longer confined to data centers with massive budgets. They can run locally on smartphones, IoT devices, edge computers, and low-power servers. That shift is monumental. Students in remote areas gain access to advanced tutoring and simulations. Small businesses gain computational power that was once unaffordable. Healthcare providers can run real-time diagnostic AI in places without constant internet connectivity. The consequences are socially transformative. Access becomes the great equalizer. Opportunity spreads beyond traditional power centers. And yet, distribution also introduces new responsibilities. When intelligence is everywhere, it must be managed ethically, monitored thoughtfully, and applied wisely. Now, let's expand to materials and infrastructure. Twisted 2D carbon superconductors might seem niche, but their effects ripple outward. Energy transmission becomes vastly more efficient. Power grids could handle greater loads with less loss. Urban planning, transportation, and manufacturing systems could be optimized in ways previously impossible. These advances don't just improve efficiency, they reshape how humans interact with technology and each other. Cities become more responsive, communities gain stability, industries operate with less waste. And when you combine AI and materials science, something remarkable happens. AI running efficiently on edge devices can manage distributed energy networks made possible by superconducting materials. Smart cities could self-regulate, adapt, and respond in real time. Agriculture, transportation, healthcare, and education could all become more intelligent, sustainable, and human-centered. The ripple effect of small breakthroughs scales exponentially. One student's curiosity leads to smarter AI. One physicist's twist creates new energy systems. Combine them, and suddenly, entire societies are optimized in ways that didn't exist before. Here's the human connection that often gets lost in the hype. None of this works without persistence, curiosity, and the courage to fail. The labs we've followed show us that failure isn't just tolerated, it's instrumental. Every failed simulation, every collapsed superconducting experiment, every misaligned electron teaches something vital. It's not just about the results, it's about the mindset that fosters discovery, patience, reflection, and relentless curiosity. Have you ever noticed how your best ideas often come after repeated attempts, or even after failures you thought were dead ends? Science just makes that truth visible at scale. This mindset is already shaping a new generation of scientists and engineers. They are collaborating across borders, sharing failures openly, prioritizing understanding over ego or immediate recognition, and designing for efficiency, resilience, and alignment instead of sheer scale. And they're building systems that are human-friendly, sustainable, and adaptable. Now, here's something that fascinated me. The emotional resilience required for these breakthroughs mirrors the global resilience we'll need in the coming decade. Just as labs navigate uncertainty and failures, societies will face unpredictable challenges. Just as researchers iterate to find better solutions, communities will need to adapt rapidly to new technologies. Just as insight emerges from tiny incremental shifts, the world's most profound changes may come from subtle, disciplined efforts rather than dramatic leaps. Science and society are intertwined in this way. Individual perseverance scales up. Human curiosity transforms technology. Technology reshapes society, and society, in turn, nurtures the next generation of explorers. Here's a question I want you to reflect on. If your small, persistent effort today could eventually ripple outward to impact thousands or even millions of lives, what would you choose to focus on? Leave your thoughts in the comments. And if this exploration of science, humanity, and future impact resonates, hit like and subscribe to Mind Science Journey. This channel is about connecting curiosity with consequence. In the next part, we'll explore how these advances might redefine the very concept of intelligence, human and artificial, and what that means for creativity, ethics, and society at large. All right, let's dive into something even more profound. How these breakthroughs are challenging the very notion of intelligence itself. Because when AI becomes lightweight, efficient, and accessible, and when materials science enables smarter energy systems, the definition of intelligence starts to expand beyond just humans or supercomputers. First, let's revisit AI. Traditional AI was heavy, centralized, and resource-intensive. Intelligence was located in massive data centers. Access was limited. Processing power defined capability. Compressed AI changes that. Suddenly, intelligence becomes distributed. It exists at the edge, embedded in devices, integrated into everyday systems. It's no longer just a tool we query. It's part of the environment we inhabit. That raises an essential question. What does it mean to be intelligent when computation is pervasive, collaborative, and integrated? It's no longer about raw capacity. It's about adaptability, efficiency, and alignment. AI is teaching us that intelligence is relational, not just computational. It's about understanding relationships, context, and constraints. Now pair that with insights from twisted 2D materials. Superconductivity, collective electron behavior, and near-zero resistance reveal that sometimes systems achieve extraordinary outcomes not by force, but by alignment and cooperation. It's a lesson for AI. It's a lesson for society. It's a lesson for our understanding of intelligence. Intelligence thrives where relationships are optimized. Efficiency enables resilience. Constraints foster creativity. In other words, intelligence isn't about doing more. It's about doing what matters with precision and elegance. Here's a moment I keep returning to. AI and humans may soon exist in a symbiotic intelligence ecosystem. Human creativity provides vision, ethics, and context. AI provides efficiency, pattern recognition, and prediction. Distributed intelligent systems act as extensions of human capability, but also as collaborators. This is different from the fear-based narratives we often hear. It's not humans versus machines. It's humans enhanced by machines that think differently. Have you ever experienced a moment when technology made you smarter without replacing your agency? That's the beginning of this paradigm shift. And here's where society comes in. As intelligence becomes accessible everywhere, education systems must teach relational thinking, creativity, and ethics, not just coding or computation. Policymakers must anticipate distributed AI, energy-efficient infrastructure, and global collaboration. Communities must decide what intelligence should do for prosperity, fairness, and sustainability. The power of intelligence in this new era is democratized, but responsibility is shared. Another fascinating development: efficiency changes the time value of intelligence. Historically, slow or resource-heavy processes limited how quickly decisions could be made.
Now, with lighter AI and superconducting systems, processing happens nearly instantaneously everywhere. That changes the pace of problem solving. Decisions, research, and innovation can scale faster than ever. But speed without wisdom is dangerous. That's why ethical frameworks and human judgment remain critical. Here's a human insight from researchers. One AI scientist described her model as like a living mirror. It doesn't just compute, it reflects what I value, what I optimize for, and where I put attention. The intelligence isn't just in the system, it's in how I interact with it. That statement sums up the philosophical leap we're witnessing. Intelligence is emergent, relational, and co-created, not confined to brains or servers. And creativity becomes central. AI suggests possibilities. Humans decide which paths align with ethics, aesthetics, and purpose. Distributed intelligence systems adapt, optimize, and iterate. The bottleneck of intelligence shifts from computational resources to human judgment, imagination, and collaboration. Have you ever noticed how your best ideas come when constraints force you to think creatively? Science is showing that the same applies to artificial systems. Constraints breed elegance. Limitations spark innovation. So here's the reflective question for you. If intelligence, human and artificial, becomes distributed, efficient, and relational, how would you want to use it to shape the world? Leave your thoughts in the comments. And if this discussion inspires you to think differently about intelligence, hit like and subscribe to Mind Science Journey. In the next part, we'll explore how ethics, regulation, and culture will need to evolve alongside these breakthroughs. Because understanding intelligence isn't enough. It must be guided with wisdom and responsibility.
All right, welcome back. Now that we've explored the evolving nature of intelligence, it's time to dive into ethics, regulation, and culture, the human frameworks that will determine whether these breakthroughs benefit everyone or just a few. Here's the thing. Technology rarely waits for society to catch up. Compressed AI is advancing rapidly. Distributed intelligence is becoming ubiquitous. Superconducting materials are opening doors to previously impossible energy and infrastructure systems. And yet, the ethical frameworks and governance structures lag behind. That creates a gap between what can be done and what should be done. Let's start with AI ethics. Distributed lightweight AI means decision-making moves from centralized authorities to localized systems. That's powerful, but it also introduces risk. Bias in localized models can amplify quickly. Autonomous systems may act without oversight. Misaligned incentives could lead to exploitation, intentional or accidental. Researchers are already debating solutions: transparency, algorithmic audits, and local accountability mechanisms. But these aren't just technical fixes. They require culture, education, and societal participation. Meanwhile, in materials science, ethical considerations are more subtle but equally important. Imagine superconducting materials enabling ultra-efficient energy grids. That's incredible, but it also raises questions. Who controls access to this energy? How do we ensure it doesn't concentrate power in the hands of a few? How do we manage transitions away from legacy systems responsibly? The lesson: every breakthrough carries social responsibility alongside technical innovation. And here's where culture matters most. Researchers and engineers can build incredible systems, but the values of the societies they serve determine the ultimate impact. Consider this: a society that prioritizes equity will use these tools to empower communities and reduce inequality. A society focused purely on profit may concentrate power, widening the gap between rich and poor. A society that values creativity could unleash unprecedented innovation, art, and exploration. Science provides possibility. Culture
provides direction. Now let's talk about regulation. Rapid technological change challenges traditional regulatory systems. Governments are often reactive, not proactive. Policies are slow to catch up to innovation. But distributed AI and superconducting technologies demand anticipatory governance. Frameworks must address privacy, security, and equitable access. Guidelines must prevent monopolization and misuse. International cooperation is essential because intelligence and energy don't respect borders. Without this, even brilliant innovations can have unintended consequences. Here's a pattern I've noticed. Ethical and cultural frameworks are most effective when they evolve alongside the technology, not after it. For example, AI research labs are embedding ethics from day one. Superconducting energy projects consider environmental impact and social integration before deployment. International scientific collaborations now include ethicists and sociologists in core teams. It's not just about avoiding harm, it's about designing systems that reflect human values from inception. And here's a striking human insight. One young researcher said, "We don't just code or experiment. We imagine the world these systems could create, and we ask ourselves, is it the world we want?" That mindset is revolutionary because it bridges technical achievement with moral foresight. It's not enough to be brilliant, it matters how brilliance is applied. Let's think globally for a moment. Countries with strong ethical frameworks and culture-aligned innovation could lead the next technological revolution. Regions ignoring these considerations may suffer consequences, social unrest, inequality, or misuse of technology. And international collaboration will be critical because efficiency and intelligence scale beyond national borders. The future isn't just determined by physics or algorithms, it's determined by how humans choose to apply them. Here's a reflective question. If you were part of a team designing the ethical framework for distributed AI or superconducting systems tomorrow, what principle would you insist on first? Leave your thoughts in the comments. And if you're committed to thinking about science responsibly, like this video and subscribe to Mind Science Journey. In the next part, we'll explore how young innovators, interdisciplinary teams, and global collaboration are already shaping this ethical and cultural shift. Because breakthroughs only matter if the human frameworks evolve alongside them. All right, let's continue. Now we're diving into how young innovators, interdisciplinary teams, and global collaboration are shaping the ethical and cultural frameworks that will govern these breakthroughs. This is where hope, ingenuity, and responsibility converge. First, let's talk about young researchers. These aren't just students following instructions. They're thinking differently from the ground up. They grew up with AI, ubiquitous connectivity, and instant access to global knowledge. Their mindset isn't how big can we make it, but how smart, elegant, and responsible can we make it. One grad student told me, "We're not trying to win awards. We're trying to make systems that don't fail humanity." That line stuck with me because it's exactly what the world needs right now. Young innovators are embracing ethical foresight, not just technical mastery. Next, interdisciplinary teams are changing the game. AI researchers are collaborating with physicists, materials scientists, ethicists, and even sociologists. Physicists are learning from computational methods and vice versa. Ethics isn't an afterthought. It's embedded in every step of design and experimentation. This isn't just collaboration for efficiency. It's a culture shift. Knowledge is shared, boundaries are blurred, and solutions are holistic. It reminds me of a phrase one lab director used. Innovation lives in the intersections. And it's true. The next wave of breakthroughs isn't going to come from isolated genius. It's going to emerge where disciplines, perspectives, and values collide. Then there's global collaboration. Technology doesn't stop at borders. Distributed AI, superconducting materials, and energy-efficient systems can scale globally in ways that were impossible a decade ago. International teams share data and methods. Labs in different countries run parallel experiments, validating results faster. Ethical standards are being discussed globally, not just nationally. This cooperative approach reduces duplication, accelerates progress, and spreads responsibility. It's the opposite of monopolization. It's democratization. Here's a fascinating example. A recent project involved AI researchers in the US, materials scientists in Germany, and ethicists in Singapore. They worked on optimizing a superconducting AI system for low-power medical devices. The AI team ensured efficiency and adaptability. The materials team designed a stable, low-loss hardware platform. The ethics team mapped potential misuse, privacy risks, and equitable deployment strategies. The result wasn't just a technological breakthrough, it was a responsibly designed system that could be deployed worldwide. I want to pause here because this illustrates a bigger lesson. Breakthroughs aren't just about clever ideas, they're about context. Who uses the technology? How is it applied? What risks and benefits does it carry? Ignoring these questions is easy when you're focused on lab results or coding, but the young researchers I've followed make ethical and societal context central to their work, and that changes the trajectory of innovation. Have you noticed how collaboration transforms not just results, but thinking itself? Shared perspectives challenge assumptions. Diverse backgrounds prevent blind spots. Interdisciplinary dialogue fosters creativity in unexpected ways. It's why the future of science isn't just in laboratories, it's in networks of human insight. And here's another human insight that struck me. Many young innovators feel a moral imperative. They worry about energy waste, bias, and inequity. They consider long-term consequences alongside short-term gains. They actively design for resilience, inclusivity, and sustainability. It's rare to see a generation so committed to coupling brilliance with responsibility, but that's exactly what's happening. So, here's the reflective question for you. If you were part of a global interdisciplinary team designing the next generation of AI or energy systems, what value or principle would you insist on first? Leave your thoughts in the comments, and if you're inspired by this culture of responsible innovation, like this video and subscribe to Mind Science Journey. In the next part, we'll explore how these ethical, interdisciplinary, and global approaches might shape real-world impact in the next 5 to 10 years, from education and healthcare to energy and governance, because understanding the human systems behind breakthroughs is just as important as understanding the science itself. Whew. All right. Welcome back. Now we're shifting focus to real-world impact, how ethical, interdisciplinary, and globally collaborative approaches are likely to shape society over the next 5 to 10 years. This is where breakthroughs in AI, superconducting materials, and human ingenuity move from labs into everyday life. Let's start with education. With lightweight, efficient AI, personalized learning is about to scale like never before. Students won't just get access to standard lessons, they'll interact with adaptive AI tutors capable of understanding their unique learning styles. In remote or underserved areas, AI can bridge gaps that traditional schooling cannot. Lessons can adjust in real time, ensuring comprehension and engagement. Teachers can focus on mentorship and creativity rather than administrative tasks. And when this AI is integrated with energy-efficient hardware, schools no longer depend on massive infrastructure. Learning becomes accessible, sustainable, and personalized. Next, consider healthcare. Compressed AI models on portable devices allow medical diagnostics to happen at the edge. Combined with superconducting materials for energy-efficient devices, this creates powerful opportunities: real-time monitoring of patients in remote regions, smart analysis of medical imaging without reliance on cloud computing, AI-driven decision support that's accessible to smaller clinics and healthcare workers. The potential is staggering: smarter care, faster diagnostics, and equitable access without massive centralized hospitals or supercomputers. Now, let's talk about energy and infrastructure. Twisted 2D superconductors could revolutionize energy grids. Transmission losses drop to nearly zero, meaning renewable energy can travel farther and more efficiently. Localized microgrids can support communities independently, improving resilience against blackouts. Cities can integrate smart infrastructure, optimizing traffic, energy use, and public services in real time. This isn't science fiction. It's emerging in pilot projects and early research programs. Energy becomes cheaper, cleaner, and more responsive, transforming cities and rural regions alike. And then there's industry. Edge AI and efficient computation will disrupt logistics, manufacturing, and supply chains. Factories can self-optimize production in real time. Inventory and shipping systems can adapt dynamically to demand fluctuations. Small businesses gain access to computational power that was once the domain of corporate giants. This shift democratizes innovation and levels the playing field, while simultaneously reducing energy waste and environmental impact. Let's zoom out to the global stage. Countries that embrace collaboration, ethics, and interdisciplinary approaches will have a strategic advantage. Smarter AI deployed responsibly can enhance governance, disaster response, and resource management. Energy-efficient technologies reduce dependence on imported fuels and stabilize economies. Ethical frameworks help prevent misuse, bias, and inequality. The world is moving toward a distributed ecosystem of intelligence, energy, and knowledge. Nations that integrate human values with technological innovation will lead the next wave of progress. Here's a critical insight: small, human-driven choices scale exponentially. One researcher choosing to prioritize ethics influences a lab culture. One lab's collaboration with international partners accelerates discoveries globally. One policy that supports sustainable AI and energy systems can impact millions. The ripple effect is real. Breakthroughs are not just technical, they're cultural, ethical, and societal. And there's a human story woven through all this. Many young innovators I've followed feel a sense of moral duty. They see the potential for AI and superconducting systems to improve lives. They understand the risks of misaligned priorities. They actively design their work to scale responsibly, not just efficiently. It's inspiring because it shows that progress without conscience is hollow, but progress with conscience can transform the world. Here's a reflective question for you. If you had access to distributed AI and near-perfect energy systems tomorrow, what would you do first? What problem would you tackle? Leave your thoughts in the comments. And if you're excited to explore these possibilities, like the video and subscribe to Mind Science Journey. In the next part, we'll explore how creativity, ethics, and technology intersect to shape the next generation of innovation, and how individuals like you and me fit into that story. Because the future isn't just built by labs or nations, it's shaped by the choices of every curious mind. All right, welcome back. Now we're diving into creativity, ethics, and technology. and how these three intersect to shape the next generation of innovation. This is where human imagination meets machine efficiency and material breakthroughs, creating opportunities we've only begun to imagine. First, let's talk about creativity. Innovation isn't just about solving problems, it's about imagining solutions that didn't exist before. AI, especially compressed and efficient AI, acts as a creative partner rather than a mere tool. It can generate ideas, patterns, and insights at speeds humans can't match. It can simulate possibilities and outcomes, helping humans visualize solutions before acting. It can inspire unconventional approaches by exploring spaces humans might overlook. But here's the kicker. Creativity isn't being replaced, it's amplified. Human intuition, emotion, and moral reasoning guide the AI suggestions. The collaboration forms a synergy where the sum is greater than the parts. Now consider ethics. Technology without ethics can be destructive. Compressed AI and superconducting materials are powerful, but power alone isn't enough. The young researchers and interdisciplinary teams we followed are embedding ethical thinking into the design phase itself, anticipating unintended consequences before deployment, considering societal impact alongside technical performance, prioritizing fairness, inclusivity, and sustainability over raw efficiency. Ethics becomes a design constraint, shaping technology in ways that align with human values. And then there's technology itself, fast, efficient, and pervasive. Edge AI allows intelligence to exist anywhere. Superconductors reduce energy loss and open possibilities for smarter infrastructure. Distributed systems create networks that respond and adapt in real time. Technology isn't just a tool anymore. It's a medium for human creativity and ethical decision-making. Here's a story that illustrates this beautifully. A team in Europe combined compressed AI with superconducting materials to optimize a microgrid for a rural community. AI analyzed energy usage patterns and predicted demand peaks. Superconducting lines minimized transmission loss, ensuring stable delivery. Ethicists guided deployment, ensuring equitable access and community involvement. The outcome? A system that was efficient, fair, and innovative. The technical achievement alone was impressive, but the human-centered design made it transformative. This intersection of creativity, ethics, and technology is already influencing global priorities. In education, it encourages curricula that blend STEM, ethics, and art. In healthcare, it guides AI-assisted diagnosis and treatment with equity in mind. In cities, it informs urban planning that balances efficiency with human experience. The next wave of innovation won't just be faster or more powerful, it will be smarter, fairer, and more imaginative. Here's a critical point. Individual action scales. Every ethical decision, creative insight, and collaborative choice contributes to a broader ecosystem of responsible innovation. One engineer advocating fairness can influence a whole team. One policy promoting equitable AI deployment can affect millions. One individual's curiosity can spark discoveries that ripple globally. Small decisions compound when integrated into systems of collaboration and shared values. I want to leave you with a personal reflection I keep returning to. Science, technology, and innovation are exciting, but their true power comes from human intention. Without ethics, they risk harm. Without creativity, they risk stagnation. Without collaboration, they risk isolation and inefficiency. When combined, they create a cycle of responsible, imaginative, and effective progress. Here's a reflective question for you. How do you see your own creativity and values shaping the technologies you interact with daily? Could small choices today ripple into global impact? Leave your thoughts in the comments, and if this perspective resonates, Like the video and subscribe to Mind Science Journey because curiosity and conscience together shape the future. In the next part, we'll explore the role of curiosity, persistence, and human adaptability in accelerating innovation, and why these qualities may matter even more than raw computational power. Because technology can amplify human potential only if humans choose to guide it wisely.
All right, welcome back. Now we're diving into curiosity, persistence, and human adaptability, the qualities that allowed breakthroughs to emerge and scale. These traits may ultimately matter more than raw computational power or advanced materials because they determine how we use technology and knowledge. Let's start with curiosity. Curiosity is the spark behind every discovery we've explored so far. Without it, AI researchers wouldn't question how to compress models efficiently. Physicists wouldn't experiment with twisting 2D carbon. Interdisciplinary teams wouldn't pursue unexpected collaborations. Curiosity drives exploration, experimentation, and imagination. It's the internal force that transforms questions into discoveries. Have you ever noticed how the most profound breakthroughs start with a simple what if question? That's curiosity at work. Next is persistence. Science and innovation are riddled with setbacks. Experiments fail, models underperform, data contradicts hypotheses. AI models might crash dozens of times before success. Superconducting experiments can collapse from a single misalignment. Interdisciplinary collaborations can struggle due to miscommunication or differing priorities. Persistence, the willingness to keep going despite repeated failure, is what turns incremental progress into breakthroughs. One researcher reflected, sometimes progress feels invisible, but every iteration is building a foundation, even if you can't see it yet. Persistence isn't just endurance, it's strategic resilience, adapting to new information, adjusting methods, and learning from mistakes. Then comes adaptability. The world of science and technology is unpredictable. Unexpected discoveries, emerging challenges, and rapidly evolving systems require humans to adapt quickly. AI researchers pivot when models fail or new techniques emerge. Material scientists adjust to experimental anomalies. Societies must respond to distributed intelligence and efficient energy systems with policy, culture, and infrastructure. Adaptability ensures that humans can steer technological power toward meaningful outcomes rather than being overwhelmed by it. Here's the synergy. Curiosity sparks exploration, persistence sustains it, and adaptability ensures relevance. Together, these traits form the backbone of innovation, and technology amplifies them. Compressed AI allows researchers to test ideas faster. Superconducting materials make experiments more precise. Distributed intelligence allows collaboration across borders. But without human qualities guiding these tools, even the most powerful technology can flounder, or worse, be misused. Let's consider a real-world example. A team using edge AI to optimize renewable energy in a remote village faced repeated setbacks. Sensors failed, predictions were inaccurate, and local conditions were unpredictable. Curiosity kept them asking new questions. Why is energy usage spiking unexpectedly? What patterns are we missing? Persistence kept them iterating, recalibrating sensors, refining models, testing adjustments. Adaptability let them pivot, changing hardware, incorporating local knowledge, and adjusting assumptions. The result? A robust, energy-efficient microgrid that transformed the community. Without those human qualities, technology alone wouldn't have succeeded. Here's a deeper insight. These traits aren't just for scientists, they're for everyone interacting with technology. Curiosity drives lifelong learning and engagement with new tools. Persistence
helps individuals navigate complexity and uncertainty. Adaptability ensures we respond to change constructively rather than reactively. In a world of distributed intelligence, these traits may determine not just professional success, but also societal resilience and well-being. And here's a human reflection that struck me. Many researchers describe moments of doubt, exhaustion, or uncertainty, yet breakthroughs often appear just after the moment they almost give up. That's a powerful metaphor for human potential. Progress rarely follows a straight line, but those who stay curious, persistent, and adaptable tend to shape the future. So, here's a reflective question for you. When you face a challenge or uncertainty, which quality, curiosity, persistence, or adaptability, do you lean on most? How might strengthening the other two change the outcome? Leave your thoughts in the comments. And if this exploration of human traits in science inspires you, like the video and subscribe to Mind Science Journey. In the next part, we'll explore how collaboration, mentorship, and shared knowledge networks accelerate innovation and why no breakthrough happens in isolation. Because the future is not just about individual brilliance, it's about collective human effort. Whew. All right, welcome back. Now we're exploring collaboration, mentorship, and shared knowledge networks, the forces that accelerate innovation and show us that no breakthrough happens in isolation. Even the most brilliant discoveries rely on human connections. Let's start with collaboration. In modern science, the age of isolated genius is fading. Today's breakthroughs emerge from teams that combine diverse expertise. AI researchers work alongside physicists to optimize algorithms for experimental setups. Materials scientists collaborate with ethicists to design responsible energy systems. Global networks of scientists share real-time data, avoiding duplicated effort and accelerating progress. Collaboration increases the pace and quality of innovation because different perspectives illuminate blind spots. Problems that seem insurmountable from one angle often dissolve when viewed through multiple lenses. Have you ever experienced a moment where someone else's perspective completely changed your understanding? That's the magic of collaboration. Next is mentorship. Behind every successful scientist, engineer, or innovator is often a network of mentors, guides who provide knowledge, insight, and encouragement. Mentors help navigate uncertainty and teach the value of persistence. They model ethical decision-making and problem-solving in complex environments. They inspire curiosity and confidence, especially in young researchers tackling cutting-edge challenges. Mentorship isn't just about imparting skills, it's about shaping the mindset and culture of innovation. One researcher shared, "My mentor didn't just show me how to run experiments, they showed me how to think, how to fail, and how to care about the world my work touches." That human element can determine whether breakthroughs are transformative or short-lived. Then there's shared knowledge networks. The internet, open source AI frameworks, and collaborative databases create ecosystems where information spreads rapidly. Labs across continents can validate results, share methods, and build on each other's work. Interdisciplinary networks allow ethical, technical, and societal insights to cross-pollinate. Knowledge is no longer confined by geography, funding, or hierarchy. This distributed approach mirrors the same principle we see in compressed AI. Intelligence thrives when decentralized and connected. Here's a concrete example. A global consortium worked on optimizing AI-assisted renewable energy systems. Teams in the US modeled AI efficiency. Teams in India and Africa tested real-world deployment in rural grids. Ethics and governance experts in Europe provided guidelines to ensure fair access. Through this network, a solution was implemented faster and more responsibly than any single lab could achieve. It demonstrates that collective intelligence outperforms isolated expertise. And here's a human truth. Collaboration is messy. Communication fails. Ideas clash. Cultural and disciplinary differences create tension. But these tensions are fertile ground for innovation. They force teams to refine assumptions, clarify reasoning, and challenge biases. The discomfort of collaboration often precedes breakthroughs. It's the friction, not just the cooperation, that drives progress. Now consider the role of mentorship and collaboration together. Young innovators gain guidance and ethical perspective from mentors. They contribute fresh ideas and curiosity to the network. Networks accelerate the spread of both knowledge and values. The result is a self-reinforcing cycle of responsible innovation, where every breakthrough benefits from human insight, oversight, and shared wisdom. Here's a reflective question for you. Think about a time when collaboration or mentorship changed the trajectory of your own work or learning. How did that experience accelerate your growth or insight? Leave your thoughts in the comments. And if you value collective human effort in shaping the future of science, like this video and subscribe to Mind Science Journey. In the next part, we'll explore the societal impact of these collaborative breakthroughs, how distributed intelligence, energy efficiency, and ethical frameworks might transform communities, economies, and governance, because science is only as powerful as the society that applies it wisely.
All right, welcome back. Now we're diving into the societal impact of collaborative breakthroughs, how distributed intelligence, energy-efficient technologies, and ethical frameworks might transform communities, economies, and governance over the next decade. This is where science begins to touch daily life on a massive scale. Let's start with communities. Imagine a small town in a remote region. Distributed AI systems monitor water usage, energy consumption, and agricultural productivity. Superconducting microgrids deliver efficient, reliable power with minimal loss. Local residents use AI-assisted tools to make informed decisions about farming, education, and resource management. The result? Communities become self-sustaining, resilient, and empowered. Access to technology is no longer limited by geography or infrastructure. Individuals can actively shape their environment using intelligence that adapts to their needs. This is not theoretical. It's already emerging in pilot projects that combine energy efficiency, AI, and local governance systems. Next, consider economies. Distributed AI and energy-efficient materials have the potential to reshape industries globally. Small businesses gain access to computational power that was once reserved for large corporations. Manufacturing becomes more precise, efficient, and localized. Energy costs drop, freeing capital for innovation and community investment. Economies that adopt these technologies responsibly may see rapid growth, reduced inequality, and increased sustainability. The bottleneck shifts from capital to knowledge, creativity, and human ingenuity. And then there's governance. AI and efficient infrastructure provide governments with tools to make data-driven decisions. Urban planning can optimize transportation, energy, and public services in real time. Disaster response becomes predictive and adaptive, reducing casualties and damage. Policy analysis and economic modeling can be more precise, equitable, and transparent. But here's the critical point. Data and intelligence are tools, not solutions. Human judgment, ethics, and accountability remain essential. Technology can enhance governance, but it cannot replace the moral and social frameworks that make it just and fair. Let's look at a concrete example. A coastal city implemented a distributed AI energy grid using superconducting materials. AI predicted peak energy usage and balanced supply dynamically. Superconductors minimized transmission loss, even across complex urban networks.
Local authorities used data insights to prioritize vulnerable populations during heat waves. The outcome? A resilient, efficient, and humane urban system. Technology empowered both decision makers and citizens, but the ethical and collaborative framework determined its success. Here's a bigger insight. Societal impact depends on how humans integrate technology into social systems. The most advanced AI or energy technology is useless or harmful without alignment to human needs, values, and governance. Equity ensures that benefits reach all communities, not just wealthy enclaves. Transparency prevents misuse and builds trust. Education empowers citizens to understand and shape technology's impact. Distributed intelligence isn't just about efficiency, it's about empowering societies to navigate complexity responsibly. And here's a human reflection. Researchers often describe moments when their work finally touched people. Seeing a rural clinic operate reliably with AI-assisted diagnostics, watching a microgrid prevent blackouts during storms, observing students in remote villages engage with personalized AI tutors. These experiences underscore a vital truth. Technology's ultimate purpose is human flourishing. Breakthroughs in labs are meaningless if they don't improve lives. Here's a reflective question for you. If you could implement one AI or energy innovation in your community tomorrow, what would it be and why? Leave your thoughts in the comments. And if you're inspired to think about the societal impact of science, like this video and subscribe to Mind Science Journey. In the next part, we'll explore how these technologies, human traits, and collaborative networks might converge to address global challenges from climate change to public health and beyond. Because the true promise of innovation lies in tackling the problems that affect us all. All right, welcome back. Now we're stepping into a big picture view, how technologies, human traits, and collaborative networks converge to tackle global challenges. This is where science, ethics, and ingenuity meet the most pressing issues humanity faces: climate change, public health, energy access, and beyond. Let's start with climate change. Distributed AI and energy-efficient technologies like superconducting grids are already enabling smarter environmental management. AI can model energy consumption, predict peak demand, and optimize renewable integration. Superconducting transmission reduces energy loss, allowing wind and solar power to reach far distances efficiently. Distributed intelligence networks can coordinate regional and global climate response, from storm prediction to carbon management. The combination of human curiosity, persistence, and adaptability with these technologies allows scalable, real-time solutions to environmental crises. Next, consider public health. Global pandemics and health inequities show us that rapid response and resource optimization are critical. Compressed AI on edge devices allows real-time monitoring and early warning systems in remote areas. Data networks predict outbreaks and optimize the allocation of medical resources. Collaboration between interdisciplinary teams ensures that AI tools respect privacy, ethics, and local contexts. This isn't just theory. Pilot programs using AI-assisted diagnostics and remote monitoring have already saved lives in underserved regions. Efficiency and ethics together amplify impact. Now, energy access and sustainability. Superconducting materials and edge AI can empower communities with renewable energy, reducing dependence on fossil fuels. Microgrids can operate independently during crises or grid failures. AI predicts energy usage and balances supply to maximize efficiency. Ethical frameworks ensure equitable distribution, avoiding concentration of power in the hands of a few. The result? Resilient, equitable, and sustainable energy ecosystems that can transform economies and empower citizens. Here's a key insight. Human traits are the multiplier. Curiosity drives innovation and exploration of novel solutions. Persistence ensures breakthroughs survive the inevitable failures. Adaptability allows solutions to evolve in real-world complexity. Without these qualities, even the most advanced AI or superconducting system might fail to solve problems at scale. Human ingenuity remains central. Now let's explore global collaboration. Addressing climate change, public health crises, and sustainable energy requires networks that span borders. Data sharing accelerates research and avoids duplicated effort. Interdisciplinary partnerships ensure holistic solutions that consider social, ethical, and technical dimensions. Mentorship and knowledge transfer create resilient communities of problem solvers worldwide. One striking example, international teams recently collaborated on optimizing AI for predicting renewable energy output across multiple continents. By combining localized knowledge with global models, they created a system more accurate and adaptive than any single nation could achieve alone. And here's the human angle. Many innovators describe moments when they see their work impacting lives far beyond their own community. Farmers in remote villages increase yields using AI-assisted planning. Hospitals in developing countries deploy energy-efficient diagnostics powered by superconducting grids. Urban planners use real-time data to reduce congestion, pollution, and energy waste. These stories highlight a vital truth. Technology only becomes meaningful when humans apply it wisely and collaboratively. Here's a reflective question for you. If you had access to distributed AI, energy-efficient systems, and collaborative networks, what global challenge would you tackle first and why? Leave your thoughts in the comments. And if this inspires you to think about the global impact of science, like this video and subscribe to Mind Science Journey. In the next part, we'll explore how ethics, creativity, and human traits will shape the unforeseen consequences of these breakthroughs, both positive and negative, and why foresight is as important as innovation. Because understanding potential outcomes is critical to ensuring science serves humanity.
All right, welcome back. Now we're exploring ethics, creativity, and human traits as they shape both the intended and unintended consequences of breakthroughs. This is where foresight meets innovation, because even the most promising technologies can have ripple effects we didn't anticipate. Let's start with ethics. Every breakthrough, AI, superconducting materials, distributed intelligence, carries moral weight. How do we ensure fair access? How do we prevent misuse? How do we balance efficiency with equity? These aren't abstract questions. They determine whether a technology uplifts society or deepens inequality. Ethical foresight is a prerequisite for responsible innovation. Researchers I've followed describe long debates over seemingly minor design choices that ultimately have huge societal consequences. Adjusting an algorithm's reward system can influence millions of users. Selecting deployment locations for energy-efficient grids can shift economic power between regions. Deciding what data to include in predictive models affects fairness and representation. Ethics shapes the real-world outcomes of innovation. Next, creativity. Innovation is unpredictable. Breakthroughs often arise in intersections, unexpected. AI applied to materials science generates solutions no single discipline could foresee. Superconducting materials combined with distributed intelligence reveal efficiency gains beyond original intent. Human creativity directs AI's outputs toward novel, meaningful applications. Creativity isn't just about invention, it's about guiding technology toward opportunities that matter. Without it, we risk optimizing for the wrong goals. Then, human traits, curiosity, persistence, adaptability, act as the checks and balances for technology. Curiosity ensures we explore new possibilities while questioning assumptions. Persistence allows innovation to survive failures and obstacles.
Adaptability lets systems evolve safely as contexts change. Together, these traits steer technological power in directions aligned with human values. Here's where unintended consequences come in. Compressed AI could inadvertently amplify biases if local datasets are skewed. Superconducting infrastructure could concentrate power if access isn't equitably managed. Rapidly deployed technologies could outpace regulation, creating social, economic, or environmental disruptions. These are not hypothetical, they are real risks that require proactive thinking, not reactive fixes. Let's consider a concrete example. A city deploys AI-assisted traffic optimization using energy-efficient systems. Initially, traffic flow improves, emissions drop, and energy use decreases, but unforeseen effects appear. Some neighborhoods experience higher congestion due to algorithmic prioritization. Small businesses in rerouted areas see reduced foot traffic. Localized energy spikes stress nearby microgrids. The solution isn't abandoning the technology, it's iterating with ethical foresight, human insight, and adaptive feedback loops. And this brings us to a critical lesson. Foresight matters as much as innovation. Predicting potential risks and benefits requires interdisciplinary thinking. Engaging diverse stakeholders ensures overlooked consequences are addressed. Continuous monitoring and adaptability allow systems to correct themselves over time. Ethics, creativity, and human traits are the guardrails and catalysts that shape breakthroughs for positive impact. Here's a human insight I keep returning to. One young innovator told me, "Every line of code, every experiment is a choice. Our curiosity opens doors, our persistence builds them, and our ethics decide which doors should remain open." It's a simple yet profound way to frame responsibility in an era of unprecedented technological power. Here's a reflective question for you. When interacting with advanced technology in your own life, how do you consider the potential consequences of your choices, big or small? Leave your thoughts in the comments. And if this perspective on foresight, ethics, and human traits resonates, like the video and subscribe to Mind Science Journey. In the next part, we'll explore how mentorship, culture, and collaboration can prevent negative consequences while amplifying positive ones, creating systems that are resilient, responsible, and adaptive. Because the future isn't just built by breakthroughs, it's nurtured by human guidance. All right, welcome back to the final segment of our journey. Now we're tying everything together: how mentorship, culture, collaboration, and human guidance ensure that breakthroughs in AI, superconducting materials, and distributed intelligence create a future that's responsible, resilient, and inspiring. This is the moment where everything we've explored comes full circle. Let's start with mentorship. Mentors aren't just teachers, they are guides, moral compasses, and vision sharpeners. Across labs and research teams, they instill curiosity, encouraging questions that drive discovery. They cultivate persistence, teaching researchers to iterate through failure. They model ethical decision-making, showing how to balance ambition with responsibility. One researcher told me, "I learned more about how to think than how to experiment." The lessons about ethics, collaboration, and adaptability shaped every project I've worked on. Mentorship ensures that human qualities amplify the impact of technology rather than letting innovation run unchecked. Next, culture. The culture of a lab, company, or community sets the tone for innovation. Open, collaborative cultures encourage risk-taking and exploration. Inclusive cultures amplify diverse perspectives, preventing blind spots and biases. Ethical cultures embed ethics into every decision, from design to deployment. Breakthroughs are not just technical, they are social products. A positive culture multiplies benefits, while a neglectful culture can amplify harms. And collaboration is the glue that connects it all. Distributed intelligence, AI, and superconducting systems are powerful, but they only reach their potential through interdisciplinary and global cooperation. Teams in different regions and disciplines cross-validate findings. Shared networks accelerate discovery while embedding ethical and societal considerations. Collaboration ensures innovations are accessible, equitable, and meaningful. Collective human effort, amplified by mentorship and culture, creates a feedback loop of responsible progress. Here's the ultimate lesson from our journey. Technology alone cannot determine the future. It's the human choices, values, and interactions that shape whether breakthroughs uplift society or create unintended harm. Curiosity sparks exploration. Persistence ensures discovery survives obstacles. Adaptability allows solutions to evolve in a changing world. Mentorship guides values. Culture embeds ethics. Collaboration spreads impact responsibly. Together, these elements form a framework for innovation that's sustainable, equitable, and inspiring. Imagine a world where this framework is widely adopted. Communities use distributed AI and superconducting grids to thrive sustainably. Education is personalized, ethical, and accessible to all. Healthcare systems respond quickly and equitably to global needs. Society harnesses intelligence, technology, and human creativity for shared prosperity. It's not just possible, it's within reach if humans guide breakthroughs with intention and care. Here's a reflective question to carry forward. What role do you want to play in shaping the future of technology, society, and innovation? How will your curiosity, persistence, and ethical choices ripple outward? Leave your thoughts in the comments, and if this journey through science, human traits, and global impact inspired you, like the video and subscribe to Mind Science Journey. Thank you for joining this exploration. Remember, the future isn't just discovered, it's crafted, nurtured, and guided by human hands. Keep questioning, keep experimenting, and keep imagining. The world needs curious minds, persistent hearts, and ethical guides, just like you. End of Mind Science Journey.